It's been a fantastic 4 years for Scottish sport at every level, with plenty to be proud of. But now it's time to raise the bar. Across Scotland, people are already working closely together, improving links between schools, clubs and performance sport. Now we want to build on these strong foundations. We want sport to be a way of life in Scotland, to be at the heart of every community, with everyone involved, working together, pooling resources and making sport world-class for everyone at all levels. We want people to enjoy sport at every stage of life, whether they're taking part or cheering from the sidelines. But to make it happen, we need people like coaches and volunteers, well-trained and supported, places to play and compete, well-designed, maintained and managed, plus a high profile to raise awareness about sport and inspire people. Do these things right and we'll get more people participating, so everyone can take part, stay involved for life and progress, develop and achieve their potential, whatever their level. Together we can do this in every environment in Scotland, inspiring and encouraging excellence and building strong networks and partnerships. So, from the pitch and pool to podium, during the training, the tears and the triumphs, we can create the perfect world-class environment for everyone. And to make the system even better, we should also ensure sport is accessible and can be enjoyed by everyone. We should also offer the best learning and training, working together, sharing ideas and making the best use of our resources. All these things fit together like this, so we can help people enjoy sport throughout their life, in every environment, sharing priorities and pooling resources, working together for the same goals. So with every leap, every laugh, every stroke, every shot, from grassroots to glory and everything in between, we'll be there, raising the bar and building a world-class sporting system for everyone in Scotland.
Well, that gives you a gist of where we're at. The key for it though is about the system. You know, and we've been talking about the system in Scotland now for about 6 years. I'm a big advocate of that because it enables you to have really quick and easy, cohesive conversations. And in particular, the area I'm interested in, my responsibilities lie here. We're really interested in these shared spaces. So the collaborative part is, it's not about what my club is doing here in this club part of the system. It's about what my club can offer here in the school and education part of the system and here in the performance part of the system. So we talk a lot about what work we can do in these shared spaces, the touch points, where people can collaborate, innovate, and we can drive some interesting practice. And that's what Hubs is. Hubs is really exploring what's going on between that sphere and that sphere of the system in Scotland. And I'll bring that to life a little bit. We're really interested in the role that sport plays in connecting local communities. So there's a kind of non-sporting part to this, which is actually, this is just about helping communities develop and grow and be a little bit more vibrant. And I won't dwell on this slide, but we, in the club space, we wanted to give a little bit of cohesion. So we went out and spoke to volunteers and administrators across the sector, and we kind of honed in on these 6 areas. So this is our kind of reference point, and everything that we do hangs off of those six headers. Pretty busy, this slide, but this is SportScotland's contribution to that system in the club space. On the right-hand side, awards for all, sports match and direct club investment is the money. The money that we put into the system, the grants, the support schemes that help people make things happen. On the left-hand side, Clubs First and Help for Clubs are the resources. The online resources where people can go and learn and share and improve. And in the middle, hubs and regional development posts are the people that we put into the system. So I won't probably talk much about people when I give you the examples of hubs, but it's important to know that behind it is a £1.5 million, so about a $3 million a year investment into people to drive these environments and this change. So that's what we put in. Similar to the strategy, the best way to describe hubs isn't for me to rattle on about it. The best way is just to play a video, and in 3 minutes you'll have a good idea of how we're doing things. The numbers are slightly out of date in this because I don't have the current version because they've exercised me since I left the country, and they don't share anything with me while I'm here. Not really, but the numbers are a little bit outdated, but it'll give you an idea of what hubs are and what's going on in them. Hopefully Andy Murray will do the same in the Davis Cup this week. We shall see, but some real synergies there to sports partnerships. Hopefully you're seeing that when you look at some of the language and some of the thinking that we're using in hubs. A couple of extra points just of information. Why? Two reasons. One, someone came to us and said, you guys need to make a contribution to the legacy of the Glasgow Commonwealth Games. And we thought, right, okay. And two, at the time, the UK was in a massive recession and sport and recreation was on the chopping block. Non-statutory service that was just getting hammered when the cuts were being made. So for us, we saw that as opportunity just to think differently. And that's what we did with hubs. We didn't come up with something new and one-off. We said, right, we've got the chance, we'll accelerate our thinking. For us in our system, we had a really strong active schools programme on the school side. We had a fantastic Scottish Institute of Sport that took care of anybody that showed any sort of talent, but we really neglected the club part of the system, and it wasn't strong enough. So that was where we wanted to accelerate our thinking. And that's what we did. And we held on to the fact that we used the legacy of the games to be different and challenge the norm and take non-traditional approaches to the way things had been done, as we say. The what? So, again, this was different. This isn't the norm. The norm for Sports Scotland when I joined it was to send someone out a form that was excruciatingly long, ask them to fill it out, it would come back into a panel meeting, the panel meeting would talk for 5 hours about it and make a decision. This isn't about that. This is about saying to local people in local communities, we're trying to build a system. We're really interested in the club space in that system. Here's some principles we want you to work with if you want some cash. Go and do what you need to do to make the best fist out of that for your people. That was our approach. So this, when you're actually looking for some kind of structure and rigour in our hubs concept, is the backdrop. These 5 principles, or deal breakers as I would call them. If people start to stray away from these in the work, then they start to stray away from areas that we want to put public money into. And they're very straightforward. What we then do is we ask those local people to decide the right place to do this, where people are interested, where they've got some ambition, they've got some passion, they've got some aspiration, and we give them the cash to go and bring the principles to life. So from our perspective, it's flexible investment that's actually going into needs of communities, rather than pre-prescribed investment that's not really hitting the mark. The second and last bit of kind of structure we give people on this project is this kind of development model, which is very, very straightforward. So, you know, I'll talk about hubs in a minute, and they all follow this structure, but the first thing to do is get your leadership group together. The key connectors in that community, paid or voluntary, doesn't matter, they want to make things happen. Get them around the table and get them galvanised. I had a guy talking in Christchurch that talked about collaboration and putting a cup in the middle of the table, and you know, we're all there because we're interested in and are passionate about what's in the cup. So that's that kind of bit. Why you're there, being clear about why you're there. The next bit is go out and understand. Don't assume, actually understand. And that's been a big shift for us. Huge shift for us. We put our finger in the air and tried netball most times because we thought that was the right thing to do. We didn't actually ask anybody. So it's engaging. And that's been quite hard and uncomfortable for us, and we're still finding our way on that. Then the planning piece is just keep it really, really simple. Be clear about what we want to do and then go and make it happen. And the key to this whole mindset around this project is that we then reflect, because we want to try and make it better. And if we think we've got it perfect, we sing it from the top of the hill and we tell everybody about it. So a really simple development model that we used in our backdrop and our thinking. So there's probably a lot of stuff I could tell you about the mechanics of hubs, but I won't, because I think what's probably more relevant to you guys is the so what bit. You know, why am I standing here? Why have they asked me to come over to New Zealand for 12 months? And it really is these stories of change. So we've got examples now that have been working this way for 5 years. And we can start to tell a bit of a story about what's going on there. And that's very important, that language. Because this isn't about our traditional approach, which says, okay, I'm giving you $50, I want 50 KPIs. You know, that's the way we used to do things. We're not doing it that way now. This is actually about telling stories of change. So yes, we've got quantitative information, but it's really about the qualitative information. You know, asking questions and finding out things that can mean people can make better decisions. So I'll talk you through some of those stories. The first one is Trice Community Sports Hub, which is in a small village, central Scotland, not far from Falkirk, if anybody knows Scotland's geography. And this one's about how they engage the community. Now, I talked about information gathering and understanding need. What we gave the sector was an online system for them to plug membership and deliver information into, and a framework to ask questions. So from those questions, we can see nationally that this is the types of methods that hubs were using to engage. And if I'm being kind of honest, we've got a hell of a long way to go in this. We've kind of done the easy stuff. You know, we've gone and spoken to the folk that want to talk to you. We haven't done the really hard stuff and consistently gone and spoken to the people that are disengaged from sport and recreation. So I'm talking to you 5 years in, we're only scratching the surface of where we need to be. And as a sector, we've got a hell of a lot to learn from a hell of a lot more informed people than us about how we can do this better. But TriStar are doing it pretty well. So they formed a collaborative arrangement with ASDA. Now, you might not know ASDA, but ASDA is basically Countdown, kind of. Is that probably the right way? I don't think it's quite back and say it's probably Countdown.
Whatever you just said.
What's that?
Whatever you just
Yeah.
said.
I think it's the equivalent of Countdown. So it's a big national supermarket. And the guys at this hub went to that supermarket and said, look, we want to engage the community. How can you help us? So they gave them a grant. And that grant enabled them to do things like this, which is actually pretty straightforward stuff. It's a post-event survey. But they've done some cooler stuff than that. They said, okay, well, that's fine, but we've actually got to go and speak to the person that's not engaged. So they actually they wanted to go into the supermarket on a weekend when the disengaged were buying their groceries. And to do that, they said, okay, well, ASDA can provide us the place, but we don't have the expertise. So they went to the local university, Stirling University, and spoke to their research department about using students who have the expertise to do the engagement. So what they've got now is a three-way arrangement between the hub, the supermarket, and the university, going in at weekends and speaking to those people to get their views on sport that weren't telling anybody about it before. And they're using that now to build programs. So they're putting on adult dance to music classes that they never thought about before because they know there's a market for it and because they're starting to build a relationship with people that want to do that. So they're finding opportunities in the community that they weren't finding before through different methods. Seems quite straightforward, but it is. This one's Armadale Community Sport Hub, and the story here is just around how they developed community leaders. So one of the other principles. And the first thing that all these steering groups do is figure out why they're together. You know, what's our common purpose? What are we going to do in these 6 meetings a year when we sit around this table? So they came up with a mission statement and the other bits and bobs. But what's different about Armadale was, this is a school-based hub. So I wouldn't bore you with the data, but effectively when this school bell went at 3:30, someone quickly ran and shut all the doors and put the lights out, and then they opened it up again at 8:30 the next morning. But they had some great facilities, some astroturfs outside and a swimming pool, and they just weren't using them. So the head teacher wanted to open the asset up to the community, and you know that was our lead in. But the fact that it was based in schools started to bring different conversations. So the school from day one said, if this is about community leadership, young people need to be on it. So the steering group had young people on it from day one. They then gave those young people leadership opportunities to be the face of the hub when the school bell went at 3:30. So they were staffed up in reception, welcoming people in to their school, to their environment, to their hub. And the cool bit about this story is, 4 years down the line, one kid that took on one of those voluntary roles is now employed by the hub to be their hub officer. So he's actually the person responsible for leading it, which is exactly what the head teacher was interested in. You know, his issue in that community was that small ex-mining community in central Scotland, kids were leaving school after year 4. They weren't interested in staying and doing exams. They wanted vocational qualifications that meant something to them. They wanted to know how to be a joiner. They wanted to know how to be a hairdresser. And he saw the hub as an opportunity to create a vocational opportunity for some of his students that he wasn't able to create before, which is now giving some of them employment in the sports sector. So that hit his mark. What we then did with that thinking was, we thought, you know what? We've kind of missed a trick here. And we should be asking all hubs to follow suit. And the example I'll give you on it is that in my own club, so go back to that picture, I got asked to go along to a primary school basketball tournament where loads of different primary school teams came together and competed. Just to tell the kids a little bit about the club. And I walked in at the end of the day and got set up, and I turned around and there was 3 players there from our youth team. 3 players there, and they were all helping at the event, coaching, refereeing, doing that kind of stuff. Head to toe in active schools, Fife Council active schools gear. So there was nobody representing the club in any way. And the guys running the event hadn't made the connect. You know, that kind of irked me a little bit. for the simple reason that we all leave school at some point. Fact. But the club's there forever. So for me, the active school team should have been promoting and selling the club in that instance and showing those kids that there's a lifelong opportunity to be involved in this sport in their community for the rest of their lives if they want to. But the point I'm making is that we're given loads of youth leadership opportunities, but we're just not joining them up. And these guys are a great example of joining it up. So we took it, and we've now asked every single hub across the country to get young people under steering groups as a prerequisite. We haven't done, in fact, that's probably the only prerequisite we've given in this whole project. But it felt like the right one. You know, when I left to come here and I said to the guys at the club, I'm away for 12 months, their first thing was, who's going to run the club? That was my thought as well, after I kind of worked my way through the kind of key tasks. And the reality was, I'm 39, soon to turn 40. I looked at everyone down to the age of 20 and there wasn't one person that was A, willing to put their hand up, and B, had the confidence to do that job. Not one out of 120 member basketball clubs. And the more capable guys were the guys that were 16 to 20, but we just weren't giving them a chance. So for me, it's a no-brainer. You know, they're the future leaders. We've got to get them involved in leadership now. So we've forced that issue a little bit. We'll be interested to see how that works, because it's not a put-upon type culture and programming community sport hubs, but we felt it was one we were going to break the mold for. So it'll be really interesting to see where it goes. So that's our Young Hub Leaders programme. This one's really, really straightforward, but it's quite interesting because South West Edinburgh Community Sport Hub is based in our university. I think we talked about that in the last kind of conversation. The university on the outskirts of Edinburgh wanted to have a better relationship with its community. There was a bit of a perception that it had a fence around it and nobody really cared. So they used hubs as an opportunity to do that and started to build a relationship with the 3 high schools in the area and have conversations. So there's multiple clubs involved now, of which the University Heritage was one. But that conversation with those schools threw up a need for basketball in that particular part of Edinburgh that in the moment wasn't being provided for by any of the clubs in Edinburgh itself. So the university said, no problem, we can service that, and start to use their students to create that experience for under 8s, under 10s, and under 12s through these three channels. Seems really, really simple. But it wasn't going to happen if we hadn't created the club, the hub in that area. It wouldn't have worked. And then the last one I'll mention is Craigie Community Sport Hub. This is quite an interesting one. This is a real, what I would call a real community hub. So these guys just started in quite a low decile area of Dundee. And the interesting thing about Craigie is that from day one, the Residents Association has been one of the strongest partners. So a total non-sporting partner, but they've been one of the strongest partners. And they've been a strong partner for a reason. This is a really old picture, this grey one. But that's the old butcher shops in this centre of this, I wouldn't call it a town, but a suburb. Now that picture was taken when they looked good. You know, if I go back 5 years, they were all boarded up and they were just a social issue. You know, there was just problems around them. So the Residents Association and the sports clubs had that aspiration and that vision to say, you know, we need to do something with these, something different. And they turned them into this. So, you know, you can see the phases, but basically they turned a condemned butcher shop into a multi-purpose space, some changing rooms, and they've got birthday parties and all sorts going on in there now. But quite a quirky group, and this is what I'm saying, it's a learning journey for us. You know, sports development in Scotland doesn't really talk to residents' associations. But we should be, because they know a hell of a lot about a hell of a lot of people that either are or aren't engaged in sport and recreation. So we're learning from these relationships. The thing I like about this one is, and I'm asked quite a lot about this, the first conversation that most community sport hub steering groups want to have is about spaces and places, buildings, pitches being better, buildings falling down. They want to talk about that physical part of sport, which is appropriate and right and correct, but it's the thing that's going to take the longest to sort out. So you get from me, I'm pretty passionate about this. It took 3 years for me to drive that project in the basketball club from an existing building to one that we could use. Never mind a dream about something that we want that's not even got foundations yet. So they want to talk about that, but what we've advocated through this project has been, take that and park it. And don't dismiss it as something that's ridiculous. Acknowledge it and understand it, but what we're really interested in is what we can change tomorrow. So yeah, there's a need around a better space or a better place, but we're not going to change that tomorrow. And we've really focused Hubs on that. You know, we don't want them to waste time dreaming and taking off task. We want them doing stuff differently. And these guys have done that. Yes, it's a bit about a place, but what they're actually doing now is forming a relationship with the local school, which is 100 metres behind the butcher shop. And they're building a 3G football rugby surface at that school, which will be co-used. The school will use it during the day, and the hub will use it in community time, at evenings and weekends. Now, they're in a position to do that because they've built the relationship and the trust and the connections over the last 4 years. And it's going to make that process a hell of a lot quicker and easier and more comfortable for the investors than it would have been if they'd have been chasing that rabbit around the field from day one. The last bit then is probably where I kind of was inclined to start, but actually it's the right place to finish. When we've been driving this project, it's not been about outcomes. Of course it has. You know, the sports minister was all over this. It was one of the flagship legacy projects in the lead up to Glasgow. There was a lot of pressure on. But we didn't want to get pushed off track with that pressure. We said, listen, let's just focus on the process. So we've been squarely focused on the process of building a world-leading sports system, with community sport hubs being a key part of that world-leading sports system. Now that means we're not asking them to chase figures. You know, what we're interested in is the quality of the people, the quality of the information that the people have. So we're kind of system building. And we're focused on the process on the basis that good process will give us the outcome. And it is. You know, we can look at the stats and there's growth. So there's some stuff up there around club membership growth. That graph is slightly artificial because there's naturally more clubs getting involved in hubs, but when you break it down, on average club, there's growth. More people are getting involved in those clubs over time. We also know the number of deliverers in those hubs is growing. So it's having an impact. The important bit though is it's also having a negative impact. So the colours aren't great, but this is the change in annual average membership of those clubs involved. And 30% of them has gone down. 7% hasn't changed and 63% has grown. That's cool. That's the reality, that's going to happen. We've built a system now around those clubs where they can see that, acknowledge it and work together to find the solutions. So there's ups and downs. It's not about necessarily that. It's about the quality of the process, the quality of the people in that system and the information they have to make the right decisions for the people in their community, whether they're currently participating or not participating yet. So, you know, the Buddha quote is relevant. You know, for me, it's better to travel well than to arrive. And that's a bit how we've approached this. Really, really focused on the process rather than panicking that we need to satisfy a politician with a number. And it's having an impact. One step into that journey, 6 years down the line, you can argue how big a step that is, but there's a long, long way to go. But that's kind of what we're doing, folks. Hopefully there's something in it that sparks a few things in your heads. I'm conscious that, you know, this is in a whole different country. From what I've seen in 9 months, there ain't a hell of a lot of differences between our two countries. Apart from the yours is probably better than ours, if I'm being honest. So I think it's relevant. You know, I think it's relevant. You maybe have more sports clubs that have assets than we do. You definitely value sport and recreation higher, culturally, in your hearts than we do, which I think is the reason that your participation stats are way higher than ours. Because we're building the system, we're creating the opportunities, but you know, people don't have it in their culture, in their hearts. Listen, all this stuff is available. There's no secrets here. The relationship that SportScotland and Sport New Zealand have had, has been going on now for kind of 5 years or so. It started about sharing IP, and then we started talking and sharing ideas, and now we're sharing people. So this stuff's out there. Just jot that link down. You can cruise in there and you'll find all of this stuff and more stuff in there if you want to go and explore this area anymore.